Welcome to another episode of RELICS Radio. This is a family-friendly show, so the entire family can join us as we talk metal detecting, relic, and treasure hunting. You can also call into the show at 270-495-0315 or join in the chat and post any comments or questions you might have. RELICS Radio is available live on the Spreaker app, but it's also archived wherever you get your podcast. You're listening to RELICS Radio. And you are listening to another live episode of RELICS Radio. I want to welcome all of our listeners that are pouring in here on the Spreaker app, and we also want to welcome all of you that will catch the archive show either on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We're going to be there. It's RELICS Radio, and I am your host, Diggin with 7, and I'm out of Southern Kentucky, and my co-host is out of Denver, Colorado, Mr. DK. What's going on, DK?
7, how are you tonight?
I'm good. Got a storm kind of rolling in. I'm looking at the future radar right here, and it should be about, the way it looks, about 7:05. So that's about 3 more minutes. Hopefully we don't go off the air, but it's not looking all that bad. So I think we're
all right, everyone in
right.
Chat. We need you to cross those fingers and them toes for us out there for this one.
Yeah, you said you've had I sent you a text, and you said yeah. I've had my fingers crossed for an hour, and I noticed it just started dissipating when you did that. So yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
I got magic toes. I do have magic toes.
Oh, do you? Oh, that's what you got crossed. Okay.
Yeah. Fingers have to be now because I'm on the keyboards and chatting in with the chat here. So now I just got my toes crossed. But we could use all the help we can get out of the chat room. You guys all cross your fingers out there. That'd be great. Tim Henderson's got us covered. Elusive's got us covered. Wow.
Yeah, I see that. Just who all we got in there tonight? We got a bunch, ain't we?
You're right. Yeah, first one in the chat room tonight was Mark Simpson. What's up, dude? Mark Simpson, always a new name. Always interested to see what he's coming to the chat room with. Scotty D, of course. Bill Hayes, always here supporting. Elusive, saw you on a stream earlier. Glad to see you here tonight. Dennis is in the house. Look, Diggin with 7's in the house. How you doing there, 7?
Oh, I'm great.
Yeah, Braden's doing good. Good to see Braden in there. Ohio Relic Hunters in the house. Awesome. Yeah, Metal Sharks. A lot of people rolling in.
Yeah, we're covered up with the bills. We got no shortage of bills, and I'm like you. You never know what what Mark is going to do. It throws me a loop. I thought, when I was saying, who is this character right here? Then it dawned on me, that it's Crazy Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, got to look out for him each time now. What's going on with him? Yeah.
Week 5.
Well, I hope to get out this
week 5 here in Kentucky of the shutdown, the quarantine here, and we are just about climbing the walls. I'll just tell you, I'm ready for all of this to be over with.
Boy, me too. I tell you, we finally finished that project I was working on, so I'm finally out from underneath that thing, and Colorado's kind of relaxing a little bit, going to a next stage of sort of this stepped downturn in the whole stay-at-home orders. They have a 3-tier step plan planned out, and so we'll see. It'll be great when we all can get back to normal. I still think it's going to be a little while, but we can still get out. I know that we're not as shut down as some people were, as far as absolutely not being able to get out. I know the UK. I have a lot of friends over in the UK, and they absolutely cannot go out and do any detecting at all. They've got them completely shut down. Which I'm glad that we're not that tightened down. Well, I think I'll be able to get out this weekend. as long as we don't get into groups,
Yeah. And Stephen Stewart said, "Hey guys, long-time listener, but first time I've made it to a live show. Good deal." And maybe it's because of the quarantine that you got to make it live. So there is some good that's come out of it, I guess. But we do hope that everyone is healthy and everyone is staying safe. I don't know of any diggers really that have gotten the COVID-19. Do you?
No, I haven't. I've heard of people in my industry. I'm in the construction industry, and I've heard of people that have had to go on to quarantine. I know we had that little scare with my wife there in the beginning, but she tested negative. And so luckily, no, I don't have anybody in my family or anything that's tested positive with it so far.
Yeah, we don't either. And in the whole community, I don't know of anybody either. And so that's good. But we have got a good show lined up tonight. A fellow native Kentuckian. He's not in Kentucky anymore. He abandoned us, I guess you could say. But I'm looking forward to this show. Go ahead and bring him in, DK.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this show too for a while. I've been watching his channel on YouTube for quite a while, and watching his impressive run on YouTube. He's really grown over the past couple of years quite a bit, and it's evident by the quality of his videos. He always does a great job. I want to welcome to RELICS Radio Kenny Marhoffer, also known as Square Nail Squirrel. Kenny, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you all doing?
Oh, we're doing great. Doing great.
I do want to say that Kentucky's my blood. I'll never abandon Kentucky. Very proud Kentuckian here, just up in Ohio for now.
Yeah. Well, and you told me that you guys still have the family farm and stuff here in Kentucky, so you'll be coming back here. And hopefully,
quite often.
Hopefully, we can link up sometime together. That would be great.
Sounds good. I usually get down around your way every once in a while.
And DK was saying about your channel. Your channel is a little bit different, not from content and what have you. I mean, it's a pretty well straightforward metal detecting show is what it is. But one thing that I noticed is that the number of views that you're getting a week is about equal to the number of subscribers that you have, and that's phenomenal. It's hard to get that, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is. In the beginning, I struggled to get 10 people. Maybe if I got 50, I was very, very proud. And then now it's the numbers just you upload a video, and within 2 hours you surpass 1,000, and I'm like, it's just unbelievable with this amount of support that I get on there with people wanting to watch my content, which is, one of my main drives to continue making video.
Sure.
Yeah, you've been doing a great job. I'll tell you, you've been on YouTube for about 2 years now, Kenny?
Yeah, about 2 years. So,
whatever made you start to want to do YouTube?
Well, I don't. Okay, here's some of my opinion. Okay.
My opinion.
You can watch YouTube videos, and I used to watch a lot until I started creating YouTube videos because it takes up all my watch time. But I would watch videos, and I'm like, man, it's just I like seeing somebody dig holes, and the back of somebody's arm does after about 10 minutes of it digging holes. I'm not, everybody's got their own style of making video, but I just got to the point where I was like, man, I could be a little bit more creative with things and make it educational, because I wasn't learning much other than what this doodad was that I used to call a doodad, but now I know it's a something. I actually have an ID for it. But there's so many things that I had to try to improve people's metal detecting, because the biggest thing about metal detecting is not only finding stuff, but it's enjoying it. And it's encompasses so many facets of things, from how to get permissions to get, research, find sites, and then it all comes down to operating the machine. All these things go into the enjoyment of the hunt. And, I figured my pattern was somewhat decent because I've been doing it for so long. So I just wanted to expose people to it and hopefully improve their hunt. So.
Yeah. I think you do a good job with it. I mean, I think you have a real nice balance of, research, where you're at, what you're surrounded by, how you're setting your machine up, and then what you find. You know what I mean? It's just a really nice balance.
It's just straightforward.
I try to keep it straightforward, but my main thing, or like, I guess the basis for my videos is that I like to watch people metal detect. But when I make a video, I don't want to just show people metal detecting. I actually want to take them on the hunt with me.
Right.
And that's my whole goal with every video. You can see the site, see the surroundings, what it's like, what I'm thinking, why I'm digging here, why I'm setting up my machine this way, the maps that tell me, a gist of where it's at, and then what we're finding. It's just, I want everybody to come with me versus I'm just going to show you me metal detecting, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And one question that I've got is that you've got really good audio on your videos, and a lot of times you're away from the camera because I trust that you're setting your camera up on tripod. And then have you got a remote mic that you're using to go into your camera then?
The audio is my biggest battle. Out of all the things I've had to learn, and everything that I do with video, I've learned from scratch. A lot of wasted money and a lot of wasted time until I found the right recipe. Audio has always been the worst part. I go out and film a full video, but there's no editing that I could do where I didn't sound like a mouse that could get rid of the wind.
Right.
Right.
So I got to the point where I was throwing away videos. So I went and got a wireless microphone this year for the last probably 4 or 5 videos. The wind still gets to me, and sometimes I have to hide the microphone down in my jacket, so it gets muffled a little bit, but I'm still fighting 20-mile-per-hour winds because it seems like it's never sunny and nice out when I go metal detecting.
Your effort's worth it, man. It's definitely noticeable.
The microphone that I'm using is just I did a ton of research and watched a bunch of videos, and I just came down to Movo, M-O-V-O. It's just a wireless microphone built for a cell phone. And one guy did a test. He walked like 200 feet away from it, and I was like, well, if it'll do that, it'll do my 30 feet, 40 feet sometimes.
Yeah.
And so far, it's done really well.
Yeah,
I've done upgrades to it.
And audio is difficult, but people are not going to watch your videos if the audio is terrible. I mean, they're going to watch just a little bit of it, and if the audio is not crisp and good, now they'll let you get by with a little wind noise and a little bit of stuff, but they want to be able to hear what you're saying, and they don't want the audio to be a distraction. It needs to support what you're doing, and I've used wired mics and plug into my phone and use them that way. I love the new GoPro Session because it really has a good mic, especially if you're hunting in the water and stuff, because you can take the thing underwater and get sound, and immediately when you come up out of the water, you've got good sound that's not, how the older GoPros would, the mic would be full of water and it'd have to drain out before the audio. The new Session doesn't really do that. And so, I know a lot about audio, and that was the thing that really impressed me about yours. And for a minute, I thought, is he overdubbing these? Because I've had so much wind noise on some clips a year or two back, but really, really good finds, and you had to include them. And I'd overdub them, and I've even gone so far as to take my phone outside whenever I'm going to overdub and just put it on record video just to get the audio of the birds and the ambient sounds of nature.
Right.
And then I overdub and I put that in there as well. I mean, I spent like an hour on a 2-minute clip, so. But you've got to be happy with it,
My editing software, which is Adobe Premiere Pro, you have to subscribe and pay monthly and all that good stuff. But there's a high pass filter in there that sometimes I have to use in order to get rid of wind. Yeah. And being that I have a male, deeper voice, it actually works better. And I can get away with a few things. But every once in a while in my video, you'll see me make a little glitch. It's because I edited out like a car going by or something that was really loud. Like if I opened up my good finds case is what I call it, just a little snap type thing. That little snap it makes is like deafening from a microphone, but you don't know it till you get home.
Yeah.
Hey, in the chat room tonight, we got Air Met Tango, and he says that excellent balance in Square Squirrel's videos, great instructional style, and you feel like you're along on a hunt with a friend. That's a pretty good compliment right there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm shooting for. And,
perfect.
So you did your job well right there. Hey, we need to run a commercial break, and we'll be right back. I'm excited to announce that Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors has rejoined RELICS Radio as a sponsor. As a multi-line dealer, Tim carries several brands of detectors and accessories, and he's ready to serve all of your metal detecting needs. I'll give you his contact info in a minute. So why did RELICS Radio go back to Tim Henderson as our dealer sponsor? 3 very important reasons. First, I often hunt with Tim, so I know firsthand that he uses what he sells, and he prides himself with great customer service and support. Second, Tim goes the extra mile in helping the new detectorist determine exactly what they need to get started. He will not try and sell you some high-priced product if that's not what you need. And at the same time, Tim can serve the seasoned detectorist with their upgrades or new product questions. And finally, Tim won't leave you hanging after the sale. He's just a phone call away for any questions or specialized training needs. So, you can call Tim directly at 615-948-4611, or you can email him at tjhenderson@comcast.net. And our good buddy Tim Henderson is in the chat. Can't wait, Tim, for all of this to be gone, where we can all get back together, me and you and Ron Reed. It seems like it's been a year since I've seen you guys, and I can't wait to get out and hunt, and especially can't wait to get down to Dale Hollow and do some dive detecting down there. Go ahead, DK.
Yeah, Scotty D in the chat room wanted to start things off, and it's a good segue into where we wanted to start anyways. When did you start detecting there, Kenny?
I started metal detecting, well, I bought my first machine at 16, but the day that I turned 16, back when you could take your driver's license and then get your driver's license, in the same year, I got my driver's license and I drove to my grandpa's house, which is all the way down in Alabama. And he pulled out this old White's blue box metal detector, and he has an old spring back on his farm down there. And we just fiddled around for a little bit, found a couple coins, and from then on, it's just something that's always stuck with me. I've had hobbies that have came in, I've done them for a couple years, and then they kind of go away. But for some reason, metal detecting, the love of history, and just everything that comes with metal detecting is just always stuck with me. And
did you have that? Did you have that love of history before you started metal detecting, or did it come sort of after that started up?
It was what history I was exposed to in the county that I grew up in. We worked in tobacco and stuff when we were kids. So, and working in hay, so you'd always find arrowheads, and I was always looking for fossils when I was a kid, and I still have like an extensive fossil collection, and just finding stuff. I'm a land surveyor, so I have to find boundary corners. So there's something built into me about finding stuff, I believe. So, but yeah, and there's a lot of history in the surveying as well. So I think all these things tie together, and it's just the history part's another, as I say, facet of the hobby that's, super enjoyable, and I don't know, just adds to the excitement.
And most people, and I know where Ken or DK was going with that question, because most people that get into metal detecting, they will tell you, I wasn't really a history student, didn't really like it whenever I was in school. But then when I started pulling things out of the ground and I wanted to know more about them, that's when I got interested more in history. So I think anybody, regardless of what your background is in history, it's amplified once you start pulling relics out of the ground and you want to know what they are.
Right.
Do you recall anything did you have a certain find that really knocked your socks off back in the early days? Do you have that one that you can think back on and remember?
Well, there are a few. One I've spoke about recently is a class ring from my high school, 1912. And I just remember digging in the front yard of this house. I asked this lady, may I metal detect? And she looked at me crazy because her yard was really nice, but she said, sure. So I went out and metal detected, and I pulled a couple really nice silver coins out, a few other items. And then I kept digging in this one pile and finally turned over a gold class ring, perfect when it came out of the ground, but it had KEW inscribed on the inside. And I went up to my high school, which is 500 and some students, kindergarten to senior class, all in the same building. So the Billetonians are on the wall. So I went to 1912 and I found KEW and the woman that is associated with it. And since I was in surveying at that time and still in school about it, but I could do deed research, I ran the deeds back, found out who it was in the family, and ran the deeds back forward and found a family member in the community.
Wow.
Found out who the grandson was, which was in his mid-60s, but they moved away. He owned a Pepsi distribution plant, and I let him know about it, and he about was floored when I told him what I found, because he actually had a diary of the woman that lost the ring where she wrote about that, losing that ring for like a month.
You're kidding. Oh, my goodness.
You think about, and he had two sisters, and they knew about it as well in the story, so he actually had 2 copies of that ring made so his sisters could have copies of it, because in one original. So
that just gave me goosebumps, man.
Yeah. I've done, I actually give up a lot of my finds, and, I wasn't trying to get money out of that guy. It's like the pleasure of handing something back to somebody that's either family history. I found a police badge where there was only one police officer in a town, and I gave it to the guy's son, and it was his father's, and he never even saw a badge on his father. He passed away when he was a little kid, and I handed his dad's police badge to him. So it's just
I got more goosebumps now, man.
Some of the stuff that's in the ground, and a lot of my early days, I always took pictures of my sites that I went to because I knew the buildings would disappear someday. And I've actually gave some of those pictures to historical societies around home in Kentucky because they don't have records of this old homestead where they're trying to write about them today. But I actually have records of that. But I didn't take very good records on my finds. I never really have, actually. Most of my stuff is not displayed, and it's about the finding it, I guess. I like to find coins because they're cool, but I'm not a coin collector. So it's just different kind of metal detectorist, I guess.
Well, watching your videos, you and I think, have similar interests, because I would a whole lot rather find, I'm not going to throw a silver dime, a barber, or a cap bust, or any of that away, a real or anything. But I like the personal items, because that with a silver dime, you have no idea how many people held that, spent it, used it, carried it. But when you find a suspender clip or a flat button, that belonged to one person, and they lived at that house probably. And you want to go back and you want to try and figure out, rewrite the scenario. What were you doing when you lost this, And it's just and digging a hole and then moving the dirt around, putting your pin pointer in there, and then you reveal something. You have no clue what it is. Although with more experience, you got a pretty good idea of what you think it should be. But then when you pull it out, it just never gets old, does it?
It never does. It's just always something new, something different. And, my biggest change in what I find is Kentucky, it used to be part of Virginia, and there's a lot of military tracks. And I used to get back into some 1700s finds, a little bit of Civil War stuff, just small camps and things like that. But coming to Ohio, nobody was really brave enough to come into Ohio until it got settled, which is, 1803, I believe. I might be wrong on that. But my coins don't get into the 1700s, and my finds really don't get into the 1700s. But the difference in things that I do find, it's like these like brooches and jewelry, and I'm talking like 1800s, not like city park jewelry.
Right.
Just odds and ends that I didn't find back home in Kentucky. It's just a different type of hunt. That and cornfields and bean fields where I was at in Kentucky, we didn't have those. So you were always on big, tall grass that was either laid over for the wintertime and, dormant, or trying to beat back briars and hay and thick woods, and just everything's a little bit different here. And I'm always hunting in mud here for some reason. It's always mud.
But you guys have the large scents there. I mean, I've heard Ohio Relic Hunter and other guys up there, Bill Hayes, they say that they're Ohio Wheaties is what they call them.
Yeah, it's amazing. I probably that's another notable find. I was with a friend of mine over in Owen County. There's now a pond built where I found the coin, but my first large scent that I found was braided hair, I think in the 1840s or late 1840s, 1850s, somewhere in there. And but I remember finding that coin, and just like, my friend he was just kind of exploring metal detecting, but he thought I was like, something was wrong with me because I was so excited that I found one of those. But in Kentucky, if you get 5 of those a year, you're doing good. But up here in Ohio, I can't spoil it for my next video, but you can do it in one hunt.
Yeah.
So,
and Kenny, I heard an explanation about that. I asked somebody, because we find several reals here, and we find very few large scents. I've probably found 3 or 4 times more reals than I have large scents. And I asked somebody, I said, why is that? And they said that the southern merchants didn't really trust the copper money, that they wanted the silver because they knew the value of silver, just the weight of it would be worth, whatever denomination that it said. And so for that reason, there just wasn't a lot in possession of people here in the South. Plus, people here didn't have too much money anyway, just poor dirt farmers that bartered back and forth with stuff. They'd trade a hog or some chickens or some eggs or something, for work.
Right.
Hey, Bill Hayes wants to know, Kenny, what part of Ohio are you in?
I'm in north central Ohio, about an hour south of Lake Erie, near Akron, southwest of it, out in the middle of nowhere. So.
Hey, do you ever get any kind of permissions or any kind of contacts that are associated with that Morgan's raid that came through there?
Well, this Morgan's raid in Kentucky, I do. I have 3 permissions. One is of a town that's gone now, and that's like one of my newest ones. I still have to go through a couple meetings on that one before I can actually get to it, but COVID's kind of set me back on that. And then there's 2 other sites where I've been hunting a camp for a very long time, and the other one, there's a confirmed camp, but it's been hunted like many, many, many times. So, but up here in Ohio where I'm at, nothing. If you're the Morgan you're talking about is General Hunt Morgan, there's nothing up here on him that I would know of.
He was in the southern part of Ohio, was where he crossed the river. And just a tidbit for you, the camp that I hunt here in Tompkinsville is where I live, right on the border. Morgan's very first raid into Kentucky, his very first battle, was about 2.5, 3 miles from my house. That's where the 44 Woods is and all of that. The 9th Pennsylvania Cavalry was there, and it was a battle that probably lasted less than 2 hours. And he routed them and then went on to Glasgow and then on up through E-Town and then to the Ohio River. And he did that twice, and then the third time he got tired of waiting for the other Southern generals to follow his lead, that he said, we're just going to go ahead and go on into Ohio. And obviously, that they got captured there. Most of them did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, where I'm at in Kentucky is really close to Cynthiana, where captured some northern trains and burned them, and quite a bit of activity down there. And that's where, I've always focused my detecting efforts for Civil War stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's some Morgan activity up there because he was from Lexington. He was part of the Lexington Rifles militia there before the war started, and then he turned out to be a Southern sympathizer and moved south. Let's run a commercial, and we'll be right back in just 1 minute. T-shirts are a perfect way to get your brand recognized, whether you're talking about a business, a club, a sports team, your YouTube channel, or whatever. But you may have asked, where can I get quality, affordable shirts on demand? Well, I'm glad you asked. RELICS Radio uses DetectTees.com for all of our T-shirts, long sleeve shirts, and hoodies. That's DetectTees.com. Ken and Mark Guthrie make quality shirts that last, they ship quick, and best of all, they're affordable. So if you need customized apparel, then go to DetectTees.com and be sure and tell them that RELICS Radio sent you. And check out Ken and Mark Guthrie at DetectTees.com. You can not only get your RELICS Radio stuff there, but they carry several other brands and shows. So check them out, DetectTees.com. Go ahead, DK. I think that you had something that you were wanting to discuss with Kenny.
Yeah. How long have you been in Ohio, Kenny?
I keep saying 2.5 years, but I think it's like 3.5 to 4, probably 4.
Yeah, I don't know if they, I think maybe they haven't had one in a while, but didn't they hold that CWPPO event there in Ohio? Are you familiar with that?
No, I am not.
Yeah,
I think it was a Civil War, some kind of Civil War project that they were doing.
It follows Morgan's Trail is what it does, and it's in southern Ohio. And Bill Marsh and Bill Hayes, they know about that. We might get them to call in after a while when we open up the phone lines. That'd be something interesting to talk about as well. But they got married, and so they didn't have a hunt there. They didn't have the CWPPO. I mean, it's a great big deal, and it takes a lot of preparation. And so they didn't have it last year, and I don't know if they're going to have it this year because of COVID or what have you, But I always wanted to go to that and was planning on going last year, but didn't get to because they didn't have it,
Yeah, Jason with Detecting Smiths in the chat room, and he's sharing the love with you. He just said he wants you to know that he's glad you're back making videos, and he always enjoys watching your shows.
Well, that's good to hear, and I'm glad to be back. It's just, I don't know, some things got to me for a little bit there. There's a lot of emotional things as well as learning curves and life learning things that you have to go through when making video. It's just lots of people. And sometimes it gets frustrating. And I took a little break.
Right? Yeah.
I think we all go through that. I went through a period where I just threw up my hands and I was just going to quit. Of course, I've not been hunting here. I don't know, for this year, this winter has been the worst winter. It was a completely wasted winter. I did some scouting. I didn't find anything worth a dime. I went back to old sites that I've hunted for 5 years, and you'd find something every now and then. It was just a wasted winter, and if I'm fortunate enough to live through another one, I will never do that again. But it gets frustrating. I mean, all the drama that comes with doing YouTube videos and then trying to figure out YouTube, how to make it work, how to make people want to watch your stuff. But you've been very fortunate with it.
Yeah, I just try to, I don't know. My main thing was just keep it real. And, it's another reason why I haven't jumped on to people wanting to sponsor and add machines and add, I don't want to have my tongue tied. I want to talk exactly how I want to talk about what I want to talk about. So if I buy a machine and I don't like it, people are going to know. I don't want to have to tie my tongue and say, well, it's a pretty good machine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So that's just the way it is. This is a hobby for me. It's not a business. And it's just making video. You know, just as much as the metal detecting is a hobby, the making the videos has to be as well, because the time and money and effort that goes into it.
Yeah, and don't get drawn into the whole commercial side of it. I've done that. It doesn't work, and it absolutely kills you. And you lose perspective. All of a sudden, you're looking at trying to make money off of it and everything. You stop having fun.
Yeah. And
it's just the whole thing. Talking about machines, you're using the Equinox. What do you think about that machine?
I absolutely love it. I don't know a better way to describe it, but it has changed my hunt so much. Enjoyable from setting it up to what I find to how much it weighs and the processor speed. I can just keep going on forever. It's unbelievable, and I really enjoy it.
I've seen some things, and I'll let you have it back here in just a minute, Ken, but I want to pick his brain on this Equinox, because I've got one, and I love it. But I noticed that you went to a single frequency, 5 kilohertz. What reasoning for that? Well,
with all that I had to learn in order to run my White's V3i, I learned a lot about how metal detectors work. So 5 kilohertz will pick up on real high conductors like silver. Now, it's whenever you take all the energy in a machine when it's trying to run its algorithm for 5 frequencies, it's thinking a lot. Even though it's lightning fast, it's thinking a lot. So from what I knew from the previous machine that I used, if you focus on one single frequency, all the energy is focused there, as well as the algorithm for the response. So when you go to a single 5, it'll hit harder on the higher conductors, but the only problem with it, from what I've seen through multiple machines running in a single frequency, like a 5 or a 2.5 or whatever, is that it gets real bad iron halo, where the iron tiger gets a foot away, but you're getting a really good sound.
Yeah,
for sounds like silver. But it'll focus in and pick up where the algorithm for all 5 frequencies wouldn't pick it up as good. It'll still hit it, but it's just a little blip versus a loud beep. So more definite readings and things like that.
Interesting.
It's the same way as, like, say, if you picked up a gold machine, the frequencies are going to be set to pick up gold.
Right.
So the 2.5 and the 5 are set to pick up on silver. So, and the only thing I don't understand about metal detectors, and this is just a thing that I've always pondered, if gold is used in all these connections for audio and really good conductor, it doesn't fall in that silver zone as a good conductor with the 2.5 and 5 kilohertz. It's something I've always wondered about, and people have asked me about, so I figured I'd add that in there.
I hadn't thought about that, but it's not. It's more down in the nickel and lead range than it is in the silver range.
And I've always wondered why that is, because if it's a high conductor, as what they call silver for picking up in the 2.5 and 5, well, you would think gold would be there, because it's, otherwise they'd be making all these connections out of silver.
Yeah.
So.
Well, maybe that's a future improvement that's heading our way someday.
It might be. It may be, and if they make that improvement, there won't be no gold left. Maybe that's the secret to keeping a little bit of it in the ground.
I got one of them brand new squirrel detectors the other day. Finds me some gold, it does.
Yeah.
Where did that name come? Where'd that name come from?
We have a pet rabbit. His name's Kojak, and he's actually a real big part of my life. It's not what you would think. Litter box runs around the house and always with you. And I wanted to make a name that included a critter. So then I thought, well, squirrels are always out in the yard, digging in the yard. And then the square nail part is like, well, you're on a good site that you want to be on when you're finding square nails, and you're going to find them.
Right.
So I just threw together square nail squirrel. So turned out pretty good.
Yeah, very, very original, very catchy.
It's memorable.
Go ahead.
I get all kinds of renditions of it, though.
So I noticed from watching your videos, you hunt a lot of home sites. You look up a lot of homes that used to be, and it usually takes you to the middle of some field. Do you have a favorite, or do you have an area or a certain type of hunting that you like over others?
Farm fields, because of the area I'm in. But historically, it's always been a foundation out in the woods, and I'll take that any day over any site. Hunting in parks and going up curb sidings, or the patch between the back of the curb and the sidewalk, and standing homes. It's sometimes if the house is interesting enough. But the problem is if you can see it from the road, it's been detected many times, is what I found. And so I always look for stuff and back in the creek bottoms on the back of a farm out in the spring, turkey hunting or something, and you see a couple lilies coming up, it's like, that's a perfect spot.
Yeah. With your profession being surveying, I'm telling you, I don't think I can think of a better accompanying profession than it being a surveyor. That must lead you into a lot of permissions. It must lead you into a lot of research and just discovery.
It does. Even the surveys and the old plats and maps, they'll give you hints. They'll say old homestead on a survey plat from the 1920s. And it's been gone, since then. They called it an old home in 1920. It's an old home. So now, but yeah, you can find out a lot of clues, and I've had fishing camps mentioned, logging camps mentioned, and some of the land patents when Virginia was giving her ground out to the when it was Kentucky County instead of what Kentucky is now. And you can find a lot of clues. And up here in Ohio, they got pretty good records as well. And being that I'm out on these farms, I can do my scouting. And every time I cross a field, I'm not looking where I'm walking. I'm looking straight down at the ground, looking for little bricks or pottery. As soon as I see one, I ask the farmers. I don't even do the research on the maps yet. I just ask them. If it'd be okay to come out and look around your fields. And usually they're like, I don't care what you do as long as you park over here and don't dig when I got crops in.
Yeah.
That's it. Then I do my research to see if there was actually something there, because farm dumps from back in the day, they can be really confusing at times and make you think of awesome sites out there where it's just old debris tossed over the hill.
And do you find you're doing more of your research these days electronically when you're doing detecting research, or are you thumbing through paper goods at some office somewhere?
It depends on if it's not survey stuff related records. It depends on what county. I actually, when I moved up here, my boss's dad, which opened the business in the 50s, was given these mid 1800s atlases, and from somebody in the community, and they didn't use them or want them. They were thinking about throwing away. So I was like, hey, wait a sec here. Let me have this. So I have actually an atlas from the mid 1800s or early 1800s for my county and every surrounding county to the one I'm in. And I've seen them on Craigslist and stuff going for 200 plus. And
you just became everyone in Ohio's best friend.
That's right.
Yeah, I know. And I keep them here at the house, and I've made records in them. And I researched the official records of the War of the Rebellion a lot. And the biggest thing about researching that is knowing what things were called when those letters and documents were written, because things change over time. Road names change. The families that were in place at that time. So when you're reading those official records of, this from the American Civil War, and they say Jones's farm, and we just crossed 3 Mile Creek. Well, 3 Mile Creek may be called something different now, and Jones is not there anymore, but you can see it right on the map, what they're talking about at that point in time. So relating to any kind of data that you have from back in the day, you have to also have maps that can be related to what they're talking about. So it's very, very, very useful tools. Now, most of these are all online, and you can print them and do that kind of stuff. But a lot of mine's, I'm old school. I like books, hard copy books.
I do too. I'd like to have a book in my hand. And you were talking about researching the official records and everything and how everything changes. I was researching in my area of southern Kentucky, and they kept talking about the Union troops going to camp at Jimtown. and I was trying to figure out where Jimtown was, and my research took me that the town was originally named Jamestown, not the Jamestown on up around Lake Cumberland, but it is actually called Fountain Run now here in Kentucky, in Monroe County, and so you have to go back to the day and the time and know what the creeks and even the towns were called, and the people that lived there, and it's a puzzle, but that's part of the appeal of it too, isn't it?
But there's nothing like it when you're sitting there and you tie all those little clues together, and you're like, man, it's right here. And you just heart starts pounding, go get permission, and it's just like the best time ever. Even just trying to find out where the artifacts are at, or where the actual spot you're trying to metal detect. But that's all part of the hunt. It's exciting. At least it is to me. So
now, do you use any kind of electronic app once you locate a place on the map or on paper that helps you find it?
A lot of people do. A lot of people like overlays, but the problem with overlays is the old atlases are not to scale. You can try to put them to scale, but you have to have some kind of reference in order to scale it. And then your norths are off, and none of them are, talking survey terms, but they're not geo-referenced. Like one's going to be tilted versus the other one, and it kicks a lot of sites far away from where they truly are. If you're just looking at the maps from one to the other, relating things, and the biggest observation is actually in the field, and then interpolating hills and valleys and road paths and things like that. But I don't use the apps. I do just for my presentation in the video, like what maps I'm using to put me where I'm at, so everybody's on the same page of why we're hunting there.
Right.
But there's instances where I use LiDAR information, which is modern stuff flown by airplanes that gives vertical elevation changes. I can take a mountain and use expensive software that I have for surveying and use these tin models and make contours. And even though I can't see on an aerial photo where this logging trail or old trail is that goes through this mountainside, I can see it from the LiDAR information. I can plain as day exactly where it's at. It
takes the trees and things out of the way, doesn't it?
Well, it actually just puts contours on there, and it looks just something that's just very minute. You may not even see it in the woods, but I can see it from elevation contours. There's a couple other metal detectors that do this or do that technique, but it's be expensive to get into unless you had the software already. But it definitely helps out on finding an old road that goes through the middle of the farm. So.
Interesting.
If it's grown up. So, it's a little different technique, but I only experienced that because of what I do for a living and trying to find evidence of if somebody's boundary line went down this old road, but the old road's been closed for 120 years. It's not there anymore. There's big trees growing up in it, and you can't even tell where it's at. But using LiDAR, you can see where it's at. So.
Yeah, that LiDAR is really interesting stuff. I tell you, it really came in handy over in England a lot. A lot of the England LiDAR maps are really detailed and can really tell you a lot.
Oh, yeah. Every state's different, and every country is different depending on their budget. But back home in Kentucky, it's half a foot on elevation, at which you can tell a whole lot about everything on half a foot accuracy.
Yeah.
So
I can see how your day job has helped your hobby.
It has, and everything that's usable that the common person could figure out without having to be trained like I am as a land surveyor. I made a video and I put everything in there that I would use prior to, like with accepting out the survey stuff. I did add some survey stuff in there, but it's just general deed research and plat searching. But a lot of people have got a lot of good hints off that video and incorporated it into their hunt. And just like what I do with every video, it's really what I'm after is like, I want everybody to enjoy what they're doing when they go out to better their hunt with, whatever I put out there.
Yeah. We were talking about John Hunt Morgan a while ago. One of the problems that we have here in Monroe County is that John Hunt Morgan burnt our courthouse in 1863. Now, his battle was in 1862. but it was on his second or third invasion into Kentucky that he burnt our courthouse and burnt all of our records. And so we can only go back so far, you know, with records, and it burned again later after the Civil War. So we're kind of deplete of old maps and old records and things like that would help us now to identify some of those land grants and stuff like that.
Right. And talking about counties and old records, if you do have a county like that, a lot of county lines have moved over the years. And I've been in counties where I'm trying to find stuff to find metal detector information, but I couldn't find it because it didn't go back far enough, because the county is actually that I'm searching in, that courthouse, is newer than the records that I needed, which were actually in another county, because that's where they were stored back in the day before that county got split off from the bigger one. Because, say, Fayette County, that used to incorporate Grant County, which is all the way up in northern Kentucky, and Boone, Kenton Campbell, all those counties in Kentucky. Well, if you need anything, you got to go to Fayette County. Yeah.
Well, same thing here in Monroe County, because it broke off of Barron County and maybe part of Greene. I can't remember. But we can go to Barron County and get some of that stuff, you know, older stuff like that. Yeah. Good point. It's just
another thing that people to think about, you know, when they're looking for old records, because you think you're at a dead end that we're in your county, but you're really not. There's all kinds of information out there. It just might not be in your county.
Guys, I've run over 5 minutes here. We need to run our last commercial, and then we'll be right back. If you want to keep up with what's going on in the metal detecting world, then you need to be a subscriber to American Digger magazine. Butch and Anita Holcomb are the publishers of the magazine and have won awards for 3 straight years for being the best digger magazine on the market. American Digger magazine is available in both print and digital formats, so no matter where you live in the world, you can enjoy the latest happenings in the hobby. You can get in touch with American Digger magazine by going to americandigger.com or give them a call at 770-362-8671. And be sure and tell them that you heard it on RELICS Radio. And I ran over a little bit of time, but Butch don't mind. He ain't going to fire me. He needs me too bad. And happy birthday today to Butch Holcomb. And by the way, I am the producer of the American Digger Magazine's podcast, Relic Roundup, every Monday night at 9 o'clock right here on Spreaker. So come and join us. Why didn't you stop me there?
Butch. Happy birthday.
Why didn't you stop me there? You was trying to. You were saying something in the chat, and I had it on the radar, so...
I was sending in the smoke signals to you, and I was just hoping you'd pick up on it there. But we're good. We're good.
Yeah, we're good. It's no big deal. Hey guys, let's just go ahead and open up the phone lines while we're in a little break here and don't have right in the middle of a conversation. 270-495-0315. We've got Squirrel Kenny on the line here tonight with us. So call in if you've got a question for him. 270-495-0315. And we've already got a call. Steve Adams from Mississippi is our first caller. And then we got another caller, and I'm going to put him on hold for just a minute. But, Steve, are you there?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Linda.
Hold on just a minute. 4245. I think is who you are. Hold on and let me get with Steve, and then we'll be back to you, okay? Go ahead, Steve.
Thing. Thank you.
Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Laura. Good, interesting guest tonight. He got a lot of good information, but I got a question for Kenny.
Okay.
Kenny, I use a Bureau of Land Management website to do a lot of my research down here in Mississippi.
Okay.
And on some of these counties that I can go to, there is the original survey, 1833, 1835, the original survey. All right, and on some of these surveyors from back in those days drew the roads in the township, the particular section that they're surveying. And my question is, are those roads going to be accurate? I mean, they have the sections, each section is listed, the 36 section out of each township, and they have the road drawn down through the town, through each section from north to south or east to west. And how accurate are those roads going to be in relation to what they are, where the roads are today?
They're going to be fairly accurate. There was general instructions to surveyors if they were doing government lands at that point in time. Those things have been manipulated over time, different specifications and things like that. But there were certain things that they had to pick up along the way. A lot of them were water crossings. If it was along that quarter line or section line, if they went across it, they'd have to give a chain distance or a pole distance, whatever they were measuring in, to where it
links.
Was. Yeah, and
they give them in links.
That's like the inch to a foot is a length.
Yeah,
it's a smaller increment. But if it appears on a map, sometimes where it's located might be a little bit off because of the scale. But you'll see a bunch of little numbers or along, say, a section line. I don't know what the definition of a section size is down there, but say it's 1 mile.
It's a mile by a mile.
Okay, and say if they crossed a north-south running road at a quarter mile, they'll give a distance to where that road is. If it shows up on a map and you're trying to overlay maps, it won't work. It'll be close.
No, I don't do any overlay.
Right. So if you just take another modern sectionalized map, as long as the sectionalized land definition for your area has not changed over time, because it does, and then there's civil townships versus like government lands, and they change some lines, and townships trade a little bit of land here and there because of taxation issues over, as cities build. But yeah, they'll be close. The best thing that it's going to tell you, the best thing it'll tell you is that there's evidence at that point in time that they were coming through at 1830, that there was a road running whichever direction, east, west, north, south, whatever, at a certain distance from a section corner. So well, it'll be all right. Even though it's chains and poles and distances, those are very accurate measurements for that time, and you won't be
on the original. If you got a copy of the original survey,
yes, those are very valuable. But if it's a real long distance, like a 3/4 of a mile, it's going to be hard to measure. But if you had a wheel that you could walk along, you know what I'm talking about.
I got a 300-foot tape that I use.
You can drag that. That'll get you somewhere quick.
Absolutely.
So it'll get you close.
Yeah, great call.
Well, that was my question. And the creeks. One more thing. The creeks. How did they draw those creeks in? Very accurate, real accurate, or perfectly accurate?
No, they're just going to be close. The biggest thing is they'll give a visual representation generally on those map of a squiggly line, and just for like a little tiny segment of it, because they don't know where it is, 200 feet away from where they're occupying when they're surveying through there. But
they don't know exactly. Okay, I got you.
See, only where they are only occupying one path through the woods, and if that creek crosses their path, they mark it. They say where it's at, but they don't know where it is when it leaves that path.
They don't know where it goes to the south or to the north.
No, unless you're on a north-south east side of a section and it mentions a creek, and then you're working across the north line of that section, and they cross another creek. And in modern day, you can look on a map and you can see that creek kind of running through there.
That explains a lot. Boy, that explains a lot, because I've tried to follow those squiggly lines before and been like, there's no sign of a creek here, man.
No, they're just an interpretation for somebody that's many, many miles away in D.C. to draft them out.
Right.
Because all they were doing was keeping records in the book and sending them away.
Yeah. All right, one more, and I'm going to get out of the way. What time in our history I guess every state was different. But what time in our history did they start putting the roads basically on section lines and quit following the ridges and things?
It's all different. Kentucky is colonial lands. It's part of 13 colonies. They divided land wherever they wanted. And then when they started working west, they came up with sectionalized land, which is what you're in. So it depends on townships and cities and how they were organized. But say all these old roads, if you have in sectionalized land a road that's just all over the place, not following section lines, that was probably a buffalo or Indian trail that became a major thoroughfare, and it eventually became acquiesced as a road. So that you still use today. Yes. So, but anything modern.
Well, this is Indian Session. This is Indian Session land from when the Trail of Tears.
Yep.
So when they
most likely
ceded all this land.
All like in Kentucky, all the roads are buffalo trails, Indian trails, wagon trails. They just build roads wherever. But here in Ohio, all the roads are on pretty much the quarter section lines and section lines.
Yeah.
Well, where I actually live in Mississippi, in the Delta, in the cotton country, everything's on section lines. But this particular area is in the hills section of Mississippi.
Right.
And is a mile longer in the hills than it is on flat ground.
It depends if you're walking it or measuring it on a horizontal plane. But it's all measured on a horizontal plane. So.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Thanks for your call.
Okay.
Hey, great call, Steve. Great call. And we also have another caller, 4245. Thank you for holding. And who have we got?
It's Linda from New Jersey.
Okay, Linda.
Hello, Linda.
Hi, Ken.
Hello, Linda.
I called to quickly address the question about gold being used in the circuit boxes and its conductivity.
Oh, great.
Great.
I'm a chemical engineer. Gold is not as conductive as silver and copper, and it's certainly more expensive. And the reason it's being used in circuits is because it's very stable and non-reactive.
I see.
So you're not going to get the tarnishing, you're not going to get the corrosion that you would with copper and silver.
That's what I was going to ask. What was it, a corrosion factor? And it is, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
They line. I've worked in manufacturing for various petrochemical companies, and quite often they'll line reactors with a thin layer of gold because it's so non-reactive.
All right, well, here's a question for you, Linda. How do I find it?
Sure.
How do I find it?
How do you find it?
I need to find more gold, Linda. No, that's some great
Dig more holes.
There you go.
Got to dig those low and medium tones.
Yeah, dig more mid-tones. There you go.
Yeah, no, great answer. Great answer. That's some great
But
information.
it really isn't as conductive, and conductivity is a little bit of a misnomer with how metal detectors work, and I really couldn't explain that very well right now. It's a little bit of a misnomer in terms of the metal's actual conductivity. It has more to do with its the wavelength it sends back from the signal from the detector, as well as how it's alloyed. But just my 2 cents, and I wanted to say hi to you guys and say hi to my buddy Ken.
Well, thank you for calling in, because it's something that's I've always wondered about, actually.
Very informative call.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll keep thinking about that and get back to you.
Sounds good.
Thanks for the call.
Thanks, Linda.
Hey, great show, guys. Thanks.
Hey, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Kenny, do you belong to a metal detecting club or a historical society there where you live?
I tried joining one for the first time in my life when I moved up here, and I don't know. It wasn't for me. I felt like, I was like total outcast. And then I'm sure, totally fine, but it was actually like an hour and a half drive to get there as well, right after work, and just get there as fast as I could, and they'd already started. So it was hard to get there. But Historical societies I'm not part of. I go to them and I let them know that if they have places that are being torn down or places of interest that they want to maybe have a new exhibit, I'll go find whatever they need and they can keep it and display it for the community. Because it's me being from Kentucky, living up here. If I find a lot of stuff from something that's special to a town that's up here, it's cool to find it, but it's better to give it to the community because all the people that grew up there and know about the history there more than I do, or actually lived it, a part of it, it really matters to them to have it. So I just go dig and give it to them, and they make little displays.
A couple of questions came in the chat about finds. Stephen Stewart wanted to know, what do you consider your best find, and what is your white whale?
Well, define white whale. What's white whale?
Something you've always wanted to find and just haven't been able to put your finger on it. Just haven't been able to put your coil over it.
Well, that I'll answer quickly. I've never found a real. I would like to find one just to be able to find one. I found about everything else besides that, and a flying eagle scent, but for some reason. But I would like to find one of those. But my best find, I don't know. Jewelry is fun to find, but it's just jewelry. I've turned some coins into jewelry, not by soldering, but a friend of mine that's a jeweler has these housing mechanisms that go around that don't hurt the coins. I actually make them and give them to my wife, and she wears them. Trimes and things like that, just because I find those to be really beautiful coins, the silver ones. But I don't know.
The stories you told earlier, I tell you, I love finds like that. They have the story, the whole thing with the diary. Are you kidding me? That's just an amazing story. And then the badge. Those are some of my favorite finds, I'll tell you.
It's about the experiences. Numerous coins, all kinds of buckles. I got some Civil War stuff, and none of them are really my favorite. Another one that's like notable. That's not even that I experiences that happen while you're out metal detecting. I was over off the Ohio River at a dam. There was an old house. I asked the lady to metal detect, and there was an old building next door. Guy was working on it. I asked him if I could metal detect. He said sure. So I had both permissions. So I ran the metal detector over the side of the building, and it went off, and peeked in through this what was an Oddfellows building, and there was two old bottles turned upside down, stuck in Portland cement, and one of them was filled with coins, and the other one was filled with, it had a big note inside of it. So I told the guy about it, and we took apart the building and pulled them both out. Tons of coins. Perfect shape from late 1800s to early 1900s. And then I found a letter inside that stated all the people that built the building, the date that they built it, and why they built it. A big letter inside there. And then there was also a little receipt, which was the only thing I kept from it. Like a carbon copy receipt thing. And it had two little boys, and both their birthday was on the same day. And it was the day that they finished building that house and put those bottles in there.
Wow.
It was pretty cool. But there's all kinds of stuff over the years that is part of the metal detecting experience that I've done and found that are just as special as the things that I dig out of the ground.
Have you ever got a chance to hunt any lands of your ancestors, like any of your ancestral homes or something across the United States at all? No, not really. I haven't. It's always been everybody else's, over 4 or 5 generations have lived in the house, but nothing, none of mine. So there's some places my family's from Cincinnati before we lived in Kentucky. I grew up, born and raised in Kentucky, but my parents did live in Cincinnati and Alabama. But all that part of town that they used to live in, my family's all gone now. It's all like Red Stadium and all that stuff. So couldn't metal detect it.
Yeah. There's one question that I want to ask, and evidently you're finding a lot of these, is the Civil War tokens that are about it kind of threw me back whenever you said, "Oh, it's just another one of these Civil War tokens," and you say, "I'm finding tons of these." I would give my eye teeth to find one of those.
Man, I I can't give away all my upcoming videos, but man, I find a lot of those things. They're like wheat cents.
Tell me,
it's all perspective, isn't it, Seven?
Yeah, it's all perspective. I do a video and I say, oh, it's another dadgum Royale. I wish I could find a large cent or a Civil War token.
Yeah.
Tell me a little more information about that Civil War token.
Well, the one that I find the most of is actually one I found, like maybe two in Kentucky, but the acidity of the soils in Kentucky, the mineralization, they eat coins. Like coins are just destroyed down there. But up here, the soil's pretty sweet. Whenever you ground balance, it's low numbers, and so mineralization is low, and so the coins come out decent. But I can really get this one Civil War token, which is the flag of our Union. That one shows up everywhere. It seems like, and it hits just like an Indian, because it seems like they took an Indian cent and restamped it. And but they're quite scratchy for some reason, and it's pretty cool because on the back you really get the feel for 1863, I believe, is when that one's from. And whoever tries to take the flag down, shoot them on the spot. And that's like a coin that's in circulation, a token. So
that's not real perspective. That's not politically correct today, is it?
No. And I found another version of a token lately, and I haven't ever found that one. And it's pretty cool. I mean, you can read every bit of it, and it's just neat to find them. It gives a different feel for times back then.
And you were talking
about tokens. Yeah.
You were talking about that most of those that you find are kind of scratchy. I noticed you found my white whale, which is a 2-cent piece. I found everything but that. I found flying eagles, reals, large cents, everything, cap bust, half dimes. But that 2-center was a scratchy signal, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I've actually found 3 of those since moving up here. And 2 of them were prior to making video. In one hole, I found 2 of them.
Wow.
And one of those, I can't remember what they call it, but it's a trime, but it's not silver.
Oh, it's a nickel.
Like a dime.
It's a nickel.
Nickel.
Yeah.
And I found one of those and 2 2-cent pieces all in the same hole. And and then this one I just found recently, and they all are just, man, I don't know if I should dig that or not. It really sounds like a square now. But if everybody knows me now, that I don't care if it's a square now or not, I'm going to dig it, because there's all kinds of stuff that show up with that 16 to 19, and this is medium tone, low to middle tone, and scratchy. And it is definitely one that would be borderline pass up. And
you got to live up to your name, brother.
Yeah, so I just dig all the square nails, and here comes all kinds of weird stuff. You never know what it's going to be. And
Bill Marsh said in the chat that the 2 centers ring up like a quarter. That's interesting. I guess it depends on the ground and what's in the ground, maybe what's around it, maybe if there is some iron that's trying to mask it or what have you. I know I've had...
I think they're made of... Or go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think they're made of bronze.
Oh, okay.
To tell you the truth. So that might be why there's such a weird reading on it.
Yeah.
But I looked it up the other day because, like, after I made the comment that they're always scratchy, I just wanted to have a book that actually has quite a bit of information about the history on coins and the metal content. And, yeah, I think they're bronze. So
they sure are a pretty coin, I tell you. I'd love to see one come out someday.
I would love to see one come out. I really would. It's a hard one to find. The trimes are hard to find, either the silver or the nickel, both of those. And I've got a friend in Virginia that I found a trime on a Civil War site, and we were on at the time we were on a metal detecting forum, and you just put pictures up of what you found, and I put a picture up of that I had found. He said, "Man, I want to find one of them, what it ring up," and we were using the same machine. And so I told him, and he said, "Man, I really want to find one of those." And he said, "I'm going to start digging all those signals like that, We're using CTX at the time, And the next day, he's on the forum. He sends me a message, and he said, I found 2 in one hole. One of them silver and one of them nickel. I said, well, I've never found a nickel one. So it was kind of interesting the way it came about. But I've had Indian heads do that, bring up scratchy. Have you with the Equinox?
Yeah, I do. It's all depending on the corrosion levels on the outside of the coin. Not so much what's around it. Well, at least with the metal detector I'm using now, but not so much what's around it. I can tell when there's multiple targets in the hole, not by just pinpoint, but the way the machine's talking to me. But if the corrosion's high, it's going to hit way different than as if it's an Indian that's nice dark green and you can read everything and it's smooth feeling versus one that's just corroded and red colored. Yeah. They do hit different. The target ID is way different, and the reaction being smooth and crisp versus a little bit scratchy and a little bit longer tone. They will hit a little bit different. So you can tell a lot by the pinpoint how it's relating to the ground. If it's a piece of junk or a toe tap versus an Indian.
Yeah.
So,
have either one of you found a cat bus half-dime before, and is it smaller than a trime, or is it about the same size as a trime?
No, I've never found one of those.
Yeah, I found one on a Civil War site last year, and
wow.
I found it with my GPX, and I had hunted that site for 5 years.
Wow.
And it was just as smooth a tone, and I think it's just a little bit smaller. I'd have to go over in the case and look and see, but I think it's just a tad smaller than a trime is. I may be wrong on that. Bill Marsh should probably correct me on that real quick. But
and 7, that gave you a nice, clean, smooth signal on that GPX?
Oh, man, just as smooth as it could be. And I had my big coil on and was just running real slow with it. Had my 12x15 on, and I just got a sweet tone, and I thought, it was probably going to be a bullet because you don't have any numbers on GPX. And dug down, it wasn't but about 4 or 5 inches, but I'd been all over that with VLF and never heard that. Maybe you missed it. I don't know. I can't say that.
That's right.
Yeah. One other question.
Machine.
Yeah. One other question, then I'm going to let DK take over again. I noticed that you're running quite a bit in Part 2. What programs are you running with your Equinox, and why?
Well, it would be Field 2. I actually hardly ever use the park modes.
That's what I meant was Field. I probably said park. Okay. Yeah, I meant Field.
Yeah, the park is highly aggressive for canceling stuff out. It does, it's part of the tool of the machine to go into a park and not mentally get wore out digging trash continuously. So it's aggressive on what targets are going to be good and which ones are bad. So I don't really use those. The field programs open up to a wide range. They accept in a lot more trash, but I'm okay with that. But Field 2, if you take an Indian that's, 8 inches deep and go over it with Field 1, it's a lot less of a nice, strong, crisp hit as it would be in Field 2. It's nice and strong. You're not going to miss it. Where you have to put some thought into if you're going to dig it in Field 1. But Field 1, it really does good on silver. It really does good on buttons. I mean, it hits them. I always say it in my videos, but it hits it like a freight train. There's no way you're going to get the coil around a button. It'll pick it up from miles away on Field 1. Field 2, if it's a Civil War 2-piece button, it'll pick it up way better than Field 1. It's a lower conductor. All Field 2 focuses and changes that algorithm to go from about the large cent down, really strong hits. Where Field 1, it's going to be from like 38, 39, 40 down to, it picks up everything, but it really has an emphasis on certain ranges between Field 1 and Field 2. So on all my sites now, as I've continued to grow with my machine, I'm going to hunt it in Field 1 and I'm going to hunt it in Field 2, because if I can wear out a site on Field 2, switch to Field 1, find more stuff. and it's just different. You know, it reacts differently to targets.
Now,
My large scent, even my large scents in field 1, you'll see in an upcoming video, they don't hit as well. But if I switch to field 2, slams it.
Yeah.
So just the difference. And a lot of corrosion. If a coin has a lot of corrosion on it, field 2 hits it way better.
And Bill Marsh did correct me on that. And let me go back to see where it's at. But he said that the where's it at?
Said 1 millimeter each side. I think he said a little larger than the trime.
He said the half dime is 2 millimeter larger than the trime, 1 millimeter on each side. So there you go. That's from the expert right there. He was sitting there measuring them as we were talking.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, Ken, is there any place you'd like to hunt that you haven't been to yet? You got any wish lists about, hey, I'd really like to go hunt this place or that place?
Yeah. Around the world, I'm usually not around the world. A Roman battlefield, sure. I'd love to go do that. But in the United States, you know, I've never metal detected on a beach in my life, ever. So I'd like to do that someday. But if I was going to pick a spot, it's going to be, you know, a Civil War battlefield, something where at least somebody shot something at each other, and there's some shot bullets, drop bullets, and whatever else that fell to the ground. Sites like that, you know, some really nice ones. I actually have a permission in Tennessee. I was on a road trip. I just stopped in some old dairy farmer's house. It's right beside a great big battlefield that's posted and cannons everywhere. And he said, sure, you can hunt whenever you want, but I just haven't got back there.
Yeah. Do you ever get home much anymore? Do you ever get back to Kentucky, Tennessee area much?
Very often. Not right now, just because travel concerns.
Sure.
But yeah, we have a house and farm and friends and family. Everything's there. So my wife and I are up here with our rabbit. And we have
your rabbit. Old Kojak.
I used to watch him on TV whenever I was younger. Yeah. Old Kojak. He has no hair.
On that lollipop. Yeah.
Yeah, it's anywhere. You know, I like to hunt about everywhere, but you know, it's no real dreams of places to go other than something exciting that's got some history to it. So.
How about collaborations? You got any plans to maybe do some collaborations with some other YouTubers up there around Ohio? I know there's quite a few around you.
There's a lot around. And it's, you know, making video opens up for people coming to your sites, and I've had a lot of trouble with that. Uh-huh. And so I had to get more discreet on what I show. But there's some folks around. I've always hunted by myself, trying to get timing, because usually when I'm going metal detecting, it's like I'm charging batteries at 9:30 the night before, and I'm going next morning. So sometimes, you know, on permissions, I have to call a couple of days full, you know, in advance. But you know, I've always wanted to go up to New York and go to that annual hunt that's up there. And but I don't know. Just I was planning on. There's 2 or 3 people that have asked, you know, to go metal detecting around here, north of me, on YouTube, and somebody in Indiana. I was going to go to them this year, but the year's just, you know, all tossed up now. Things have changed a lot, and have to kind of regroup after all this is over with, if, you know, whenever it finally is over with, and try to go out and hunt with some folks. I think it would be fun. I did it once, you know, with a viewer, but it'd be cool to go get some other people on camera.
If you're ever down here at the Kentucky-Tennessee line, or want to come down here, holler at me, and we'll see what we can put together. We can do some Civil War hunting, and can't guarantee it, but there's a possibility you might find a real. You know, definitely find some bullets. You know, somewhere.
Yeah. I'll bring you some Civil War tokens and plant them around. I've got something there.
You know, I was going to be hospitable and offer for him to come to Colorado, but I think I want to go the opposite direction. I think I want to come see Kenny up there in Ohio.
Yeah, I'm going to
take me in the backfield somewhere.
I'm going to go to Ohio. I really had planned going up to Bill Marsh and them, and Katie, bar the door. Look here, Bill Marsh is called in. We done flung a craving on him. What's going on, Ohio Relic Hunter? Hello?
Hello?
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. What's going on tonight?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes. Hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I got a question for Kenny.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I heard you mention at the beginning of the show that you're up around the Akron area and you're negotiating some permissions to hunt a town that moved. And without mentioning any names of towns, I think I know the one that you're hunting. We've been hunting that since about 2015 or so, if it's the same one. And if it is, I've got a ton of information and literature, 3-ring binder, aerial photos, basically the whole history of the cemetery and everything. If you're interested in that, I can get that information to you.
Well,
And
that would
also, if
probably
you're
be
getting-
a news site, just because the one I was referencing is actually deals with John Hunt Morgan, and it's down in Kentucky. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, then you need to get with me anyway, and I can still get this information to you, and I can give you the property owner's
Sounds
information and get you in that site.
Oh yeah.
So,
I'm always looking for
but yeah,
somewhere to go,
okay.
at least. But
Well, this one's close to you if you're in the Akron area. So,
yeah, are you towards Cincinnati? Is that who was referenced
I'm
earlier?
in more central Ohio. I'm about an hour and 20 minutes from you now.
Oh,
So,
okay. All right. Yeah, it's
southeast Ohio.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's a lot of history down there. You're probably near the old Seven Ranges, and which is the first land that was laid out in Ohio, and things are much older there than they are where I'm at. So you're in a good spot.
That's actually a little bit further east of me, but I know what you're talking about. So
Yep.
that's old land there.
Oh yeah.
So what's
definitely.
that Ohio Company? What do they call it? The Ohio Company?
There was a couple
Ohio
of them.
Land Company.
Yes, and there's some Virginia military tracks and all kinds of stuff down around where you're at, and lots of French and Spanish as well that were running in your area.
Absolutely.
That's something I always wanted to
Absolutely.
do.
Well, come on down. I'm privy to all that stuff. So.
All right, sounds good.
Hey, Bill, while we got you on the line, let me ask you something about. We were talking about CWPPO. Do you know anything about whether obviously they're not going to have one this year, but whether they're planning on having those future hunts?
Well, as you know, I'm good friends with Sam and Evan. We've talked about that a couple of times, and of course they got married and kind of let things go to the wayside on that.
Yeah.
And we have been talking about it. We've been talking about bringing it back, but I don't know because it's such a big deal to get that stuff organized. I mean, Sam was just, running all over the place. She's got to deal with everything from porta potties to asking landowners to dealing with the historical societies and all that kind of stuff. And it's really taxing. So
yeah, I knew that.
That's why she brought us guys in, a group of us to help her do the organizing and stuff. And it took some of the burden off of her, but it's still, after CWPPO is over, she usually takes about a month and then starts right back into the planning for next year. I mean, it's that involved.
I knew it was.
Maybe one of these days.
Yeah.
Nothing's for sure yet.
Yeah. I knew we had her on the show one time, and she was talking about what an ordeal it was and how much time and everything. I'm still planning on coming up your way. Of course, this virus kind of threw a monkey wrench in it. I was going to forego DIV just to try to make a trip up there to hunt with you and Bill. But maybe a little bit later we can. And we got our last caller coming in now. Thanks for calling in, Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. And 1887, who have we got, the last four numbers?
This is Jim Martin.
Jim who?
Jim Martin.
Jim Martin.
Hey there, Jim.
Hey, you got a question for Kenny?
How's it going? I sure do. Kenny, first off, I love your videos. I've been watching a lot of them and just learning to do some field hunting myself, and they've been invaluable to me, and I really appreciate those, so keep them coming. My question for you is, when you're out in a field, do you do a pattern search, and if so, how do you set that up, or do you just kind of wander around until you hit something?
Well, it depends on how excited I am.
Boy, ain't that the truth.
If I get out there and I find something really great right off the bat, I'm a wreck for like the next half hour trying to keep a pattern. But my whole plan when I go out is, yes, if there's farming patterns, I follow them. And I always try to, wherever my swing path is, it's overlapping on the edges. And then after I go one direction, if I have enough steam left in me, I turn back around and I start working the other direction, because the angle of approach is 40% of the game, in my opinion. And things will change. You'll pick up different targets and just hit them different. So, yes, I do follow patterns, and I try to, as I'm walking through farm fields, if there's a rock laying there, every 20 feet, I'll either set it up on top of something or make it stand out from the rest so it's been moved. So I know where I've been. Some people carry little flags and pin flags with them, but I just use what's out there to try to simplify things on what I have to carry out in the field, because already I have a ton of gear, all kinds of batteries, and just monstrosity of things when you're trying to film yourself. But yeah, I mark things, keep pattern, and then when I go back the next time, I somewhat remember what I did, but I usually just hunt the whole site all over again. And
cool.
It's not always a perfect grid. Sometimes I even come in at 245s, if that makes sense, like an X.
And I guess that
I appreciate that.
Hold on there for just a minute, Jim. It was a great question.
Sure.
Sometimes, well, normally whenever I hit a site like that, and I'd say Kenny does the same thing, what I want to do is I want to identify the debris field. In other words, I want to know where the iron is at, where the structure was. And you may just crisscross in the field and find the corners of that, and then once you get a broad area and you say, now that's the debris field, that's probably the house, then that's whenever you start gridding, right, Kenny?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I usually have all metal on, just walking around in the beginning until I find out where all these nails and whatever, anything that's metal. I'm not even looking at target IDs. And as soon as I hit that debris field, I'll just start hunting, and it'll go quiet, and you'll realize you're on the edge of it. So turn around and go back, and after a little bit, you know exactly, by the end of the day, you know where the front yard is because of what you're pulling out of the ground. The backyard is, and also where if they pushed the house down with a bulldozer or burned it and laid it out so they could farm it just to make it barren land again, you'll know where that's at. It's just all progression of understanding the site as well as how you work it. Because when you first find it, you don't know where anything's at, so you just take off. You could start metal detecting and straight out of the gate and walk directly away from where you want to be metal detecting, and only until you have a little bit of time in, you'll know where to set your grid down. So.
Okay. Yeah, I got a app that I purchased, Techo Track, and it kind of has a crumb trail that you can see where you were, and then you can plot your finds, which has really helped out trying to figure out where things were. But I think the biggest thing is I keep wandering over the same areas because I'm not following a good pattern. So always interested to see how you did that. So
yeah, I know people that use tent pegs. Tent pegs are bright, they're plastic, and they're usually about 8 inches long and not heavy. And you can make a little pouch off your belt and carry 6 to 8 of them. And even if you have one baseline or just 4 corners of the area that you want to hunt, you can keep a way better pattern. And I always do it, look at something in the distance, and I hunt for 10 feet, look up, see that thing in the distance, and just keep walking towards it, and then turn around and find something in the distance. It could be a mile away, but I'm walking towards that.
It's like,
hey, Jim, what was that? What was that app you just mentioned, Jim? Detecting Smiths wants to know in the chat.
It's Techo Track.
Techo Track.
TECKOTRACT, I think it is. Found it online, and it's a pretty neat app. It's a little hit and miss on putting down the crumb trail accurately where you're at, but you can definitely see with the finds, your pictures, it shows right up. So you can kind of lay out where you've been and see where the finds are coming from versus some of the trash.
And the CTX 3030 had that. It had that technology in it, and I've used it, and that is good whenever you're plotting your finds and everything, because you'll begin to see a pattern if you'll look at that at the end of each day. And if you're seeing a line of things or a square of things, you know to stay within those areas or maybe some other places to research. Hey, great questions, great information, Jim. Appreciate you calling in. I said you were the last caller, but Denny Morrison snuck in. You got 1 minute, Denny.
There you go. 1 minute.
You're gonna have to join the show earlier if you want to talk more than 1 minute.
I was going to ask how many square nails he's found. I've got a couple thousand I'll give him.
Well, he is the square nail squirrel, so he's holed up a bunch of them, I'm sure.
Yes, I got a better app for you if you want to try it. I just found it this year down on the Muskingum River. A friend of mine, Steve Wagner, showed it to me, and I've been using it ever since, and it's called GAIA GPS. And I can do everything that you're doing, and the maps go back to the early 1900s. Actually, they go back to the 1800s, up to the 1900s, and then on through to 1930. And it will show you a house or a log cabin site, wherever it might be, and it will, as you're walking down the field, it'll take you right to it.
Pretty nice.
Yeah, I've heard of that program. I haven't used it, though.
Yeah, Denny.
It's a cool app. It does cost you $39 for a year, but I have used it so much in the last, oh my gosh, I don't know how, this last week, I found 3 houses I never knew were in a field. It is such a great app.
Yeah.
So it's well worth the money to me. I mean, you're out in the field looking for a log house or an old house or a homestead. This thing will almost definitely pinpoint it for you, and you can walk right to it.
Yeah,
nice.
Rather than have to walk all over.
Yeah, that's awesome.
A good way to look at that is there's nothing else. If you do get a good site off of that, the metal detector, you know where it's at. There's nothing else you can do for 8 hours that's going to cost you $40 and get as good as entertainment.
That's true.
Exactly right.
And
that is true.
And you can have several 8 hours during the year with it. Yeah. Sure
yeah.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, you can. You can put waypoints on it where you found your targets, and also a picture on it also. And you can put it on your laptop. I care if I have them on my phone. I've got it on my iPad also. So it's an excellent tool.
Yeah, that is.
And Denny reached out to me earlier in the week and showed me that. And the maps that you will have on that and the sites will be dependent upon your area and the topographical maps that your area has. And you can go back in dates as far as those topographical maps go back. Now, some counties go back a long way and some don't. So it may be limited on the resources that you have for your county, because that's the only way they work off of the USGS topographical maps, I believe, the old historical.
Right.
Yep. Thanks, Denny.
You're
Thank
welcome,
you, Denny.
buddy.
Great call.
Yeah, I
All right.
hope you had a good time down on the pond.
Oh, I did. We caught some fish and got away for a day, so that was good. Been busy during all this coronavirus broadcasting for different organizations and outfits and everything. So appreciate the call.
Be safe, my friends.
Okay, you too.
Yeah, you as well,
Same
Danny.
thing.
Good
And Jim, thank you for your call as well.
That's right.
Kenny, you've been a great guest. We've kept you longer than we said that we would. We ran over about
You're
7
fine.
minutes, but great show, great information, great callers. We couldn't have had a better show. No storm, so everything worked out right.
My toes and fingers work.
Yeah, appreciate everybody in the chat crossing your fingers and toes. Hey, Kenny, tell everybody where they can get in contact with your YouTube and stuff.
The easiest way is just squarenailsquirrel.com. There's a big button in the middle. You hit that, it'll take you straight to my YouTube page.
And he does good videos, and you will enjoy them. I guarantee you that you will. And Ken, anything else?
Yeah. And you put all of his links in the description of the show, too. So for those of you that are listening in, maybe catching the replay, you can go in the description of the show and definitely catch those links over to Kenny's YouTube channel. And I highly recommend you go over and give him a look and watch some of his videos, and you're sure to become a fan. I really appreciate you coming on tonight, Kenny, and joining us for this time and kind of being an open book. Really appreciate you coming over.
It's a pleasure getting on here and talking with y'all. I mean, it's been very enjoyable.
Well, hang on while we close the show, and we'll talk. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you out. Yeah.
It's just the community of folks that are in metal detecting are just some of the best people on the face of the planet, in my opinion. It's just always nice to talk to people.
What do you want me to give him a ring, Tim? Tim Henderson, our metal detecting sponsor, also makes silver coin rings, and he wants to give you a ring for being such a great guest. He did that last week as well. So when we go off from being live here, Kenny, I'll get your address and I'll get your ring size and everything, and Tim will make you one of those, and I'll get in touch with him. And appreciate it, Tim. You don't have to do that.
That's amazing. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, he does great work. As a matter of fact, earlier, 7, he talked about he had just finished Shane's from last week's show. He had just finished Shane's tonight while I was listening to the show. So awesome offer there, Tim.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And he does often does birth years. And so I might get your birth year as well, and he could do that. He was going to make a birth year for mine, but he said he sure hated to destroy a real. But you've been a great guest. Hang on, and we will say our goodbyes off the air. Ken, you got anything else that you want to say before we close out?
No, just everyone stay safe out there and be well, and we will see you next Thursday.
Okay. Yes, we do appreciate all of you coming on tonight. We appreciate all the calls that we had. Great night of callers, great night of information. I tell you what, this was a great show. I knew it was going to be, but Kenny was a great guest, a wealth of information. We're going to have him back on because there's more questions that I had that I wanted to pick his brain about. But everybody stay safe, keep your distance, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, everything. We're going to get through this, and everything will be back to normal before we know it. Catch us next Thursday right here on RELICS Radio on Spreaker, 8 o'clock Eastern. See you then. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on RELICS Radio. We really do appreciate it. Be sure and join us live each Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern here on Spreaker, or you can catch the archive show at RELICS Radio on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Apple Podcast, and many other podcast outlets. Please take a minute and hit the like button, and be sure that you follow us so that you'll get notifications of all of our upcoming broadcasts. Be sure and visit Diggin with 7 and Adventures in Dirt on YouTube, and check out the RELICS Radio Facebook group page. If you'd like to get in touch with us, then send an email to relicsradio@outlook.com. We'd love to hear from you. We hope that you will join us next Thursday night, and until then, get out there and dig some history.